Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with the Blockchain Legal Institute talk show, and we would like to thank you for hopping on and remind you to definitely like and subscribe to all of our social media channels because there's many things going on around the world today. A lot of current events and news dealing with compliance, dealing with blockchain, cryptocurrency, and a lot of other topics. We want you to keep in the know and current on things that are happening in our world. Today, I have a very interesting guest who is doing something that's actually very close to my heart because of the fact that, we are actually on a talk show. We are actually, creating live media. And when someone like ourselves or others around the world are reporting on events, there are obviously that's an important role. And so, how that happens, hopefully it's without bias, but there's a lot of different ways to report. And so, like with every blockchain application, the founders and the creators see problems and then they decide, okay, we need a solution. And so, with my guest today, that's exactly what happened. And they've created a solution to a number of challenges that exist. And so, I want to welcome you today. How are you doing?
Hi, Jackie. I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate your being here. Why don't you go ahead and for, a short amount of time, share what what your background is and
Sure.
why you decided to kind of come forward to create this type of protocol to solve the problem.
Yeah, sure. So I'm in the blockchain, crypto space, Web3, whatever you want to call it, for quite a long time, like 2011 probably. So I'm in the space a very long time. I guess I have a fairly deep knowledge of the technology. And while I have been in the space in various capacities as an investor or consultant, and even doing startups from as far back as 4 years ago, I did a synthetic assets project. But I guess because I'm abreast the entire space, I can see all these technologies being built. And then in a previous work life, just before crypto, I worked in media in Sky Media, which is Rupert Murdoch's satellite TV company in the UK. I worked in the advertising side of things, so I would also have a knowledge of that sector. And I've just always been following with interest the trials and tribulations of media since, I guess, around the financial crisis. It's been struggling. It's an industry that's consolidating. A lot of smaller players are just shutting down or getting bought out and gutted. And I think this is a bad thing for society. So I'm seeing this on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm seeing all these technologies from blockchain to decentralized storage protocols to decentralized identity protocols, all these things coming together that can actually, I saw about 3 years ago a view where I can build something that can fix media, I guess, for want of a better word. And that's what we started doing over 2 years ago with Olas. We spent much time in stealth and R&D because it's a very big problem to tackle. But we're now out in the open, and we hope to launch a competition for one of our quality control mechanisms in the next few weeks.
So I know that you talked about the media side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and why media? Why specifically did you decide that that was something that needed to be addressed?
A couple of things. One, I just personally, whether via my own background or just generally having a deep interest in media. Like long before I started Olis, I had about 15 different subscriptions to newspapers. I'm a bit of a news junkie. So it's something I guess I'm naturally drawn to outside of blockchain. That's one thing. And then another thing is it's a big challenge. If you want to build, certainly the news media side of things is a big challenge. If you want to build a social media platform, you want to do an X on the blockchain, it's not that hard. You build the same thing, but you just make it decentralized. They don't have editorial controls. They're not really regulated. They're exempt from regulation because they're seen as platforms. Now, that's changing a little bit. There's EU rules and stuff, but compared to news media, it's extremely light touch. So it's not a massive problem to solve, but if you try to port news media with all its constraints over to the blockchain, and you're doing it in a non-hierarchical fashion, you have to try recreate them in a decentralized way. That's very hard. So you need to do a lot of mechanism design from scratch, basically, which we were doing. So I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. I want the challenge, and as well, I've been very interested in the topic.
Why Olas? Why that name?
So as you might gather from my accent, I'm Irish, and Olas is the Irish for knowledge. We were thinking of using that name at first, but there's actually nobody really knows it, but there is a company in Silicon Valley from the .com era called Olas. That's actually quite a big market cap, so that was one blocker for it. And then also, I just think internationally, it's EOLAS, and I think a lot of people would have struggled with the pronunciation or would have pronounced it differently. So we just dropped the E, basically.
Okay, all right. So how, if someone is interested in using the platform, how would they do that?
Well, right now it's just in still concept stage, but we're about to exit that very shortly, within 3 weeks, I hope, or maybe 5 at most. We're going to launch peer prediction tournaments. So basically, when we launch our publishing platform proper, readers will be, when they read an article, will fill out a survey at the end when they're tipping. Tipping's going to be our main revenue model for journalists. And readers will be asked to fill out a survey, just 2 questions, and it's based on cutting edge decision science or forecasting science from MIT. We've built these mechanisms where we can actually use readers to quality control the journalist content themselves. We're going to test this mechanism in 3 weeks, and people who sign up via our website, olas.info, will be able to earn what are called reward tokens, which will eventually be redeemable for Olas proper when we launch. So there's a way to get, I guess, help us hone our mechanisms and earn money from doing it.
So I'm on your homepage or one of your pages, and it's talking about 3 different areas. We talked about the economics of media. I know you were talking about rewards. So that's also one of the incentives of creating this platform, I believe, is to support the content writers of the media. And
Yes.
how is that going to happen?
Yeah, so like media is a shrinking industry. If you are one of the big players, subscriptions has saved you. Like in 2011, people thought the New York Times might shut down. That's how bad things were with advertising revenue.
Yeah.
And it pivoted to a subscription model, and it's made a success of it. But it's able to do that because it's a massive brand. It can get investment to pour into subscriptions to run them at a loss for a while. Also more investment to invest in all these sophisticated algorithms to keep your customers when you have them. They're able to do that. A few other big players are able to do that, but most aren't. So they're kind of stuck with these advertising revenue scraps that have shrunk because big tech take all of that now, particularly Facebook and Google. Slightly behind them is Amazon. But the long story short, revenue have been shrinking big time. And there's been no kind of innovation in media business models because they're the only 2 things on the table. But with the advent of blockchains, we are going to be enabled, and particularly stable coins of blockchains, we're going to be able to do micropayments for the first time on the internet. They're just not economics for the legacy financial system. And we believe with that, it opens up a whole host of possible business models. The primary among them, in our view, is tipping. We think we won't have to paywall things anymore. We will just make tipping so frictionless, so easy, as easy as liking a post on social media now. When you scroll to the bottom, read an article all the way to the bottom and are asked just to give 10, 15, 20, even 50 cents if you want to an article, and it's just like this, you're going to do it. And you have to remember as well, because this is a decentralized platform, there's no media owner or shareholders to pay a rent to. So most of this, the vast majority of this goes to the journalist's pockets, and actually some of it goes to the readers' pockets as well. It's going to become profitable to read the news by holding journalists to account. So that's kind of our big idea in saving journalism, I guess.
Well, I think it's important, especially because we have freedom of speech as not always free, and there's a lot of barriers and blocks that are happening these days, and censorship and other things. So having
Yeah.
the ability to write, and not opinionated, but write information about what's going on within the world, I think it's important to have a variety of platforms so that way people can read. I know that one of the areas that we talked about was, like whistleblowers and things like that. And that's sort of connected to the media side. Do you want to explain more why that is something that you're focusing on as well?
Yeah, well, you've hit the nail on the head. Like, aside from the severe revenue issues or profit issues media is facing, there's increasing censorship issues, particularly in authoritarian regimes. Only 5 years ago, there was huge restrictions all around the world because of COVID. In the West, those restrictions were temporary. They were eventually lifted. But in authoritarian regimes, there was huge restrictions placed on media, and they were never taken away because that's what authoritarian regimes do. So, according to Reporters Without Borders, of something like 2/3 of the world's population has seen a decline in media freedom over the last 5 years alone. So that's a serious problem, but that's just explicit censorship. That's literally laws preventing journalists from doing their job. But even in the West, in the internet era with online mobs, etc., or biased owners giving editorial direction, journalists are having to self-censor a lot as well. They might want to write on a topic, but they don't feel confident. It's just not worth it for them. The blowback, the career damage from it might be too much. So we've thought about this problem at length. Now, the first solution is obviously the actual infrastructure you build on itself. The beauty of decentralized infrastructure is there's nobody to call up to go, here, take that article down, please. You can't threaten anyone. You can't hit them with tariffs or anything like that. So that's your first kind of defense. But the second one is you need defense yourself, because you are going to write under a name, and most journalists do write under their own name because that's the best way they can further their career. They get notoriety and they get to, a personal brand, I guess. But that's risky when you want to write on these controversial topics, or if you want to whistleblow in your government in any country around the world. So we've built a system, or are in the process of building a system based on decentralized identity, with proof of unique human, where nobody will be able to have more than one account, for starters, but they will be able to have derivative accounts, pseudonyms. So let's say, you'll have selective disclosure as well. So let's say you want to write on a controversial topic or whistleblow in your government, you'll have this burner pseudonym that nobody will know what your real name is, but you'll be able to disclose your reputation, that A, you're of standing as a journalist, B, you also have knowledge on this particular topic you're writing on, and maybe disclose a couple of other things that will basically let readers know you're actually someone who's worth listening to. You're someone with a rep. But you'll crucially protect yourself from blowback, and you can anonymously then collect any profits from that article as well. So I think this is going to be a huge innovation for freeing people up from both explicit and implicit censorship around the world.
So I guess my question is, with the whistleblowers, especially, even though, with media, we don't want to have censorship, are you going to try to quote unquote fact check some of the content that might be there, even though we're talking about freedoms? But we also have seen distortions in our media.
Oh yeah.
Because of, and it's not just artificial intelligence doing this, people trying to create news to sway different audiences to think certain things. So how are you going to fact check sometimes certain things to make sure that it's not defamatory, or at least not true?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of points there. So yeah, we're trying to make the media system better, full stop. So it's not just better for journalists, it's better for readers as well. And
Yes.
One of the things of making it better for readers is improving the quality of information. So what we need here is a carrot and stick approach for journalists. The carrot being higher revenue opportunity, but the stick being you're going to be held far more accountable than you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this brings us to our quality control mechanisms. There will be bounties over every article that readers themselves can profit from finding fault with a journalist. So every time a journalist posts an article, they'll do so with a stake. And their reputation's at stake as well. They don't even need a monetary stake, but we're probably going to, for even stronger guarantees, we'll probably include a monetary stake. And every time a journalist posts an article, they know their tips go basically into an escrow for 2 weeks while everyone gets a chance to read the article. And maybe not that long, but I think 95% of readers read an article within 3 days. So maybe 3 days is more realistic. But something like that, right? But every time a journalist posts an article, they know their earnings are dependent on people not finding problems with it.
Yeah.
So they have to be spot on. Now, there will always, and this is not just with, wanton lying, where we're talking about just misquoting of figures, et cetera. Well, there'll also be things like context checks. Is important context missing from this? I guess was a story told in full. So the idea is that a journalist has to do a best effort to inform the public as accurately, as truthfully as possible. And if they do, they'll maximize their payouts.
Okay, now for individuals that want to get involved or sign on or be part of this process, how do they do that?
So in 3 weeks, we will open up registrations for our what are called Bayesian truth serum competitions or tournament, which is this mechanism for quality control I just spoke about. What people will need is a world ID, preferably orbed, but if not, at least tying your phone to it for now. In the future, everyone will have to be orbed because it's the only real guarantee against Sybil attacks. Sybil attacks being people setting up multiple sock puppet accounts. But yeah, so you will go to olas.info, register your world ID, get given an Olas identity. You will then claim an airdrop from us that is actually in itself worthless, but they are basically voting power. It's voting power to then participate in the tournament. And if you do well, you'll get reward tokens from that tournament. And then when we launch, you'll be able to convert those reward tokens for Olas, which we hope will be worth some money, and hopefully quite a bit of money if we do well. But yeah, that's how people will initially get involved. But we're going to do numerous different tournaments. We're going to have people create AI agents to participate in these quality control tournaments as well. That'll probably be our next thing. Then we'll have maybe writing competitions. These are all things we'll do before launch, because the idea is we hone everything. We have everything kind of improved even before we do our full launch, which is probably still about a year away.
So those tournaments, is it sort of like hackathons, or why are you? I love the idea of a tournament, but what?
It's kind of best seen as a forecasting tournament. So it's a little bit like, I don't know if you heard the Good Judgment Project by Philip Tetlock.
No.
He runs these forecasting tournaments and he finds what are called super forecasters. And they're so good that the CIA were interested in forecasting because that's their job. They're supposed to predict what's going on in the world, right? Geopolitics.
Right.
And they said, can we go in a competition against your super forecasters? But it was a very uneven competition in predicting, because the CIA have access to all these classified documents the super forecasters don't. But despite that, the super forecasters beat them.
Wow.
Yeah, this is about 5-10 years ago. So it caused a root and branch reform in the CIA. Like they were like, well, why aren't we doing things this way? So this is kind of a similar approach to that. It's just through a different type of market design. But we're going to basically, the way it's designed is we find the insightful people within the crowd, because the crowd can be a mob. Mm-hmm. The crowd can be very silly sometimes. So we have these clever mechanisms. As I said, they're designed by people in MIT. We've tweaked them a bit for our use cases. But basically the idea is they're a valuable heuristics for narrowing in on the people who know things in the crowd.
So, from your perspective, this is definitely a really important project. Where do you see it going after the launch? What do you see its vision for what you would like it to do within the next 5 years?
Well, given all the kind of work we've put into quality control and revenue model design, we are hoping that we'll become the most trusted platform for information on the internet. No other platform will have these onerous requirements of journalists, stuff like you have to stake money on your own work. It's never been heard of before and nobody's doing it. So it becomes this kind of place where people go when they really want to know the truth. So something might get written on another platform and people might have to be debating whether it's true or not. And they'll go, why don't you just publish this on Olas? So it will go through its quality control mechanisms. Stuff like that. I'd like to see that happening. I'd like to see journalists themselves, a little bit like the Substack revolution. They'll go, whoa, hang on, I'm making way more money here than I was working for X newspaper. And then gradually, because I think if it's not us, someone will do it. Gradually the centralized newspapers will start to close down because the economics of them, in theory, shouldn't be able to compete with something like this. But this is a 20-year journey that we're absolutely, committed to following. I certainly am anyway, as a founder. If I wasn't doing this, I don't know what else I'd be doing. I guess a successful launch is producing really high quality information and gradually growing until people see this is the best way to do media on the internet.
I know that you talked about the idea that the centralized media, might their existence might be waning at some point. What I'm hoping is that we can continue to have centralized media as options to look at, but like you said, have your site be available to kind of verify the truth and things like that, because also traditional sources, not everyone knows about the decentralized world, or where to go to find. So at the very least, the centralized media is going to help direct people to Olas. And, someone might say, well, I've read this, like you said, on the New York Times or the Washington Post, publish this. And then there will be the way for maybe even to cross-reference, the centralized media might say, well, this article was already shown as true on Ola, so it gives more credence, to when they publish as well.
Yeah, I definitely envisage this kind of hybrid model, certainly for the first few years at least, and maybe continue indefinitely, so a lot of things are happening now with local, smaller news players. They're getting bought up by huge hedge private equity funds. Gannett, I think, is the major one in the US. And what they do is they gut the support staff. So the people who do fact checking, the people who do review, they get pooled into one building in one city somewhere, and you have about 40, 50 newspapers trying to share these resources. So everyone's really stretched thin. And as a result, the quality of media has collapsed as a result. And then you also have the journalists having to do all this internet SEO stuff and to boost so they're not even able to focus on their core work anymore. Mm-hmm. We think the likes of these private equity firms might be very interested in very cheaply using our quality control services for just as cheap as their current systems are, with much better quality, or with guarantees, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, I think it's phenomenal. I think what you're doing is very important because, again, we need a variety of sources to share with us different views and what's going on in the world. And, again, we have print, we have the visuals, we have the audio, but in order for us to kind of stay connected and also know what's going on within governments and other communities, we need people to report on it. So, if we don't support the journalists, those that are doing the media, then we're back to the COVID area of just being in our house, only knowing that what is going on in our own rooms. So it is important to know what's going on outside. Any last minute thoughts that you'd like to share with everyone? Because I think your project is critically important.
Not really. I think I've given the details of the tournament we're going to launch soon. I think everyone should try get involved with that. It's a real novel way of doing kind of prediction markets, if you want to call them that. You have to predict what the crowd's going to do and then give your own answer. We think it's going to be a lot of fun. And as I said, hopefully profitable for early adopters. Keep an eye out at olas.info and also olas_protocol on Twitter, or X as it is called these.
So for
I
everyone,
lost you.
yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it's all good. So for everyone who is listening, thank you so much for hopping on today. And remember the information so you can participate in the tournaments and learn more about OLAS will be in the blog below. And I know that this conversation is going to be staying on the Blockchain Legal Institute's YouTube for a while and within our ecosystem. So you might hear about this even after this tournament that he's sharing with you has passed, but there'll be others. So definitely always go back over to the platform so that way you can see what's going on within the time that you're actually hearing this story. So thank you so much for being on today. Truly appreciate. Everyone, remember to like and subscribe. And as always, have a great day, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much.